Hey, Tom here from the Run Testers. In this video, we are going to be doing our first run review of the Saucony Triumph 23. Let's have a look. The Saucony Triumph 23 costs £170 or $170. It weighs 278 grams or 9.8 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 10 millimeters. The Triumph line has seen a number of changes over its lifetime, with a mixed response to certain iterations of the shoe. The Triumph 23 is a noticeable deviation from the bulky 22, focusing on delivering changes that make the shoe lighter and giving it a smoother heel-to-toe transition. The Power Run PB aims to be lighter and softer than the previous version, providing an improved experience, especially for longer training sessions. That focus is mirrored in a redesigned rubber outsole that works alongside that foam to ensure a more fluid, natural ride. The upper is a lightweight engineered mesh built for breathability and comfort, and includes a thick, padded, gusseted tongue.
Unexpectedly, I've ended up with a UK 8 of the Saucony Triumph 23. My normal size is a UK 9. I'm usually okay in a UK 8.5 with Saucony's cushion shoes as well, because they are quite roomy and I'm a bit small for my size, but a UK 8 is too small. I would say that I've still got a little bit of room in front of my toes. It is a pretty roomy shoe, the Triumph, so I would say stick to your normal size. You're going to be fine. If you're someone in between sizes, maybe going half a size down will get you a slightly closer fit if you want that. Don't go a full size down like I've got here. That is going to be too small. I like the redesigned fit around the heel of the shoe though. I like these kind of tapered collars you get on lots of shoes. Hoka do it a lot as well. I do find it provides the right balance of comfort and support around the Achilles without rubbing it in any way like I sometimes get with more rounded counters. So yeah, I like the fit there. Tongue is very padded. That can be a bit warm at times, but all in all, pretty standard fit for a cushion shoe. Probably being able to stick to your normal size, not a full size down.
Let's give you a quick word on fit then. And I ran in what would be my regular Saucony shoe size. That's a UK 8.5, US 9.5. I tend to really get on well with Saucony shoes. They tend to fit me almost like a glove. They've got almost like a really natural disappearing fit on my foot. They just seem to work well with my foot shape. And overall, I would say the same is pretty true here of the Triumph 23. The only thing I will say, there's loads of space up front. That's great. There's maybe a little bit, you've got a big thumb's length in the toe box. Decent wiggle room across the top. There's lots of room here for the toe knuckles, so those are sort of held there, but they are not restricted, just about right. Back into the heel collars, everything kind of really plushly padded. It's obviously quite narrow, the heel collar, so I find it holds my heel really well in place. That sort of high heel hasn't troubled my Achilles on that first run, so that's pretty good, because that can be a worry. There's a softness to that. You see it sort of bends and flexes, so the heel counter doesn't come up too high. Lacing across the midfoot is good. You've got a nicely padded tongue here, which helped get that locked in overall. If anything, I'd just say maybe they are a little bit on the too roomy side, but only if you're thinking about whether or not this shoe might be able to go a little bit faster. This has got an ultra fit for me, which by that, I'd say for the Berlin Wall 100 mile, where I want a shoe that's going to be nice and roomy in the toe box, give lots of room around the little toe, feel like they're airy and lots of wiggle room and spacious and no worry about butting up against. That's the kind of fit you'll get. It is nice and roomy. Some people may find it a little bit too roomy if you've got sort of slightly more narrow feet. I'm quite wide and high, but overall I don't think I would go half a size down. I'd recommend sticking true to size unless you really wanted everything to feel a lot tighter on here. I think they fit well.
So fit's looking good for me so far in the Saucony Triumph 23. I've got it in a UK size 8. That's my typical running shoe size. That's the same shoe size I've had the previous Triumph shoes in. Like those versions, I am feeling like this is a true to size fit again on the 23. I've got the regular width fit option. There is a wider fit option as well. I do think for my skinny narrow feet, this is perfectly kind of roomy and spacious, but not feeling overly spacious in those kind of key areas, and still getting something that's quite supportive and structured in the right areas. But I do think if you've got slightly wider feet, I think you're probably going to be okay going for the regular kind of width fit option here on the Triumph. Now, in terms of space up front of the toe box, ample, doesn't feel overly generous, good amount of room there to kind of spread out, get further back into the shoe. Midfoot hole generally looks good to me as well. The kind of spongy laces you're getting here, this kind of well padded tongue offers good comfort on the top of your foot. You've got kind of good level of padding in the heel collar as well, not overly generous, but just enough to give you some extra comfort there and support. And then when you get to this kind of heel collar, as here, it's quite a rigid kind of one here, kind of, I haven't had any irritation or any kind of rub against the back of my ankle there and foot. So, that kind of seems to work well for me at the moment. So yeah, I think going true to size is going to be absolutely fine. As I said, I think if you've got slightly wider feet, I think you might find that the regular fit option of the 23 might just work for you.
So fit for me in this shoe, very, very comfortable. There's plenty of space in the forefoot. I'm a size 8 in the UK. This is a size 8. There's plenty of space before my big toe. There's loads of space around the sides of the forefoot and the midfoot. It's a very, very comfortable shoe, much like the previous Triumphs. But equally, it's also quite easy to get a nice lockdown fit in as well for a first run. There's loads of padding on the tongue, around the ankle collar, and I didn't have any problems with any heel slippage or anything like that. So I found it really, really comfortable on that first run. I'd definitely stay to my size in this shoe.
So just on my first run in the Saucony Triumph 23, I'm coming back from the Comrades, so it was a week since I did the 90k out in South Africa in the heat. I've done a couple runs since, but I'm still on very tired legs, so that was a very easy, or at least going out, a very easy 6 mile that I've just done there. The pace was slow to begin with. Actually, I clipped up a little bit towards the end, went kind of sub 8 minute miles, around kind of 7:30s, which that's much it's faster than my easiest pace, which would be around kind of 9 minute miles, but I didn't really clip along anything faster than that. Initial impressions of the shoes, good comfort. They've got that kind of Saucony fit, which I really like. They're nice and roomy, nice and spacious. There's plenty of wiggle room in the toe box. Everything fits really nicely. It's quite a spacious shoe for me, going true to size, but that works quite nicely for the long and easy. Heel comfort was good. When it comes to the ride, I wouldn't say it was immediately 100% natural underfoot. For the first 2 or 3 miles, everything felt a little bit slappy and a bit disconnected. You've got quite a wide forefoot base here. A lot of shoes now we're seeing, they're getting bigger and wider as well. That does a couple of things. It brings a lot of stability and a lot of reliability underfoot, and that there is a nice control to this Triumph 23. But at times, I think it can make it feel a little bit slappy and a bit bulky and a bit disconnect is not the right word, but I didn't feel like everything was moving through with sort of the instant kind of pickup that I would like. So I had to work a little bit harder to sort of get through that roll through. You've obviously got Saucony speed roll geometry going on here. I didn't feel that was working quite as efficiently as on some of the other shoes like the Speed 4, and so I just didn't get quite that kind of natural roll through immediately. They came to life a bit deeper into that run. The midsole sort of softened up and I started to get used to the way that the shoe ran, and everything started to feel better for the last 3 miles. The key sensations you're going to get here is softness, cushion, reliability, pretty good stability. The footbed itself cradles nicely. There is a soft edge to it. There's a little bit of spring back as well, a little bit of bounce, a little bit of energy. Not a lot, I wouldn't say. And from the run that I did there, I think even when I sort of pushed up the pace a little bit, I sort of felt like the shoe wanted to go slower rather than faster. So in my book, from the sort of initial miles, feels like a shoe you're going to use for slower and easier rather than anything particularly sort of fast. Part of that, I think, as well, is the kind of width of it, which it just feels a bit, clumping's too severe of a word, but it's just not quite, it's clipping through as quick as some other shoes. There's a decent amount of softness in the heel if you're landing further back. You are going to get quite a lot of cushion and compression from that heel back there. I land mid to forefoot, so I was looking to engage that kind of rocker, which took a little bit of time. Wasn't engaging quite as quickly and sending me off quite as immediately as I would have liked. Now I think the Triumph has sort of flip-flopped a little bit from having sort of slightly firmer to slightly softer. It's another one of these shoes that sort of tends to sort of flick back and forwards. I think it was the Triumph 21, which came up a bit snappier, it was a bit firmer, it was a bit more immediate, and I think it had like a bit more upper pace. I think it went softer last time, if I remember rightly, the 22. This one feels super soft as well. Yeah, it's now, I don't know, I'm going to put it in like a mix with the sort of gel Nimbus, but like a lighter, probably more agile gel Nimbus, but a shoe that I would use for sort of similar runs in my head.
So my first run at the Triumph 23 was an 8 mile run, and I was kind of hitting kind of my easy, moderate paces. And those are kind of the paces that I would typically use at the Triumph. Now, like most of the other guys in the team, I didn't absolutely love the previous Triumph, the 22. I found it a bit too heavy. I found it a bit blocky in terms of the ride. And I think it really kind of was a departure from the previous kind of 2 Triumphs before that, the 20 and the 21, which I really liked. And I think had, definitely a good kind of comfortable daily trainer shoe, kind of, max kind of cushion style shoe, but definitely didn't feel like it, and definitely had some versatility kind of at that kind of moderate and slightly more up tempo paces. I do feel that the Triumph 23 is kind of moving back to those kind of good versions of the Triumph. I think the key thing here is that it's definitely lighter than the Triumph 22. That's definitely something that I held against it, and probably wasn't the reason I like to spend a lot of time in. I don't think it held that weight very well, didn't distribute it well. It just felt like a bulky, kind of clunky shoe to be running in. I did like the idea of, you know, Saucony having that Power Run PB in there, which we know works really well in its kind of endorphin kind of range shoes. The Triumph 22, it didn't feel as nice. I think they've slightly tweaked it here. It definitely feels less blocky, definitely a lot softer. It's not super plush like some of the max cushion kind of midsole foams that we see now, but it's definitely going to give you a softer feeling, definitely compared to the Triumph 22. There's still nice rebound there, you know, really nice bounce there. There's a good kind of transition from heel to toe in here as well. It's pretty smooth, relatively stable as well. Maybe not the most stable shoe, but definitely felt relatively stable. I did feel most comfortable when I was just ticking over at that easy pace, but unlike the Triumph 22, I have found those tweaks in that midsole, that kind of drop in weight, I think has helped to make it feel again like a shoe that I'd want to pick the pace up slightly in. I wouldn't want to be doing kind of faster, all-out paces, race pace, but in terms of kind of my moderate, slightly more up-tempo pace, I definitely felt it was more comfortable to do that in the Saucony Triumph 23 compared to the 22. Taking a look at the outsole, and there is quite a good amount of rubber here, particularly at the forefoot of the shoe, where you are getting quite a wide kind of forefoot area here, kind of narrows a bit more the heel. Similar level of rubber at both areas of the shoe. There are some exposed areas. I've been running in dry conditions, you know, mainly kind of on concrete and kind of flatter kind of terrain. It's been absolutely fine. You know, it's when it gets a little bit wet, so that's where I really want to see. But what it does tell me is there's a good amount of rubber here to suggest that it's going to be a shoe that can handle a lot of your running time. And this is really what the Triumph is about as a shoe, really one that can eat up a lot of your running mileage. And I feel like this is an outsole and a shoe in general that is going to be able to do that. So yeah, definitely a good first run in the Triumph 23. Definitely feels like it's an improvement in some key areas on the previous Triumph.
So my first run in the shoe was a pretty comfortable 7k run at a bit of a mix of my comfortable paces. So I went down to about 4-minute 45 kilometers and then went up to about 5-minute 20 kilometers, which is a very comfortable range for me when I'm going out and doing a relatively easy run. And I wasn't a big fan of the Triumph 22. I said that in many videos. I did London Marathon in that shoe and I really didn't enjoy it. I just felt like it was a very bulky, clunky shoe. I didn't feel like there was a lot of transition in it. And it just didn't enjoy that shoe. That shoe didn't work for me. I didn't like the midsole, and I wasn't a big fan of it. And there were lots of other shoes that I said were far better than it last year, which is annoying because I really liked some of the previous versions of the Triumph. I thought they were really good, and the Triumph 22 just didn't work for me. So I was a bit worried when I picked this one up because I was hoping they would make some updates to it that would make it a bit more like the previous versions of the Triumph. They have, thankfully. It is much more like the Triumph 21 than the Triumph 22. And that comes down to the fact that they've modified some of the aspects of this shoe to make it a bit lighter than the previous version. It's definitely a bit more flexible, a more comfortable natural ride. The midsole here, you can see it, you can sort of flex it a little bit. The Triumph 22 was a lot firmer to move, and you could really feel that on the run. So yeah, so that first run, very comfortable. I think it definitely feels like there's a little bit more of a smoother transition in this shoe. It feels like it's moving you forward, whereas the Triumph 22 didn't. It felt like it was deadening my my movement as I was running, whereas this feels a lot more like the previous Triumph, which was a really good shoe for longer sessions, easy runs, and it was a bit more of a versatile cushion trainer, whereas 22 wasn't. And I think this is getting closer to the 21. I think it's more of a balance between the 22 and the 21. I don't think it's as good as the 21 when it comes to energy return and just being a bit of an all-rounder shoe. But I think it's getting there. I think it's definitely a more comfortable shoe to run in now. I think it's got a little bit more energy return for me in it. But I think it really comes down to that heel-to-toe transition, which I didn't get from the Triumph 22. So Enjoyed it on that first run. Very excited that the Triumph 23 seems to be a return to form to what I really enjoyed about the Triumph 21 and the Triumph 20. And I'm looking forward to doing some more miles in it. I'm hoping this is going to be a trainer that I start picking up now for more comfortable, easy runs, longer sessions, things like that. And the Triumph 22 definitely wasn't. So very much enjoyed it off that. Outsole, it was quite nice today. I didn't really have any issues at all with it. It seems pretty good, but I definitely need to do a bit more testing to really understand how that outsole is over longer sessions and more miles. But yeah, very successful first run.
So I did my Sunday long run in the Saucony Triumph 23 for my first run in the shoe. That involved doing junior park run first, so 2k nice and slow, and then I think it was just around kind of 18, 19k through my local forest, mostly on roads, but with some hard packed paths as well. I wasn't a huge fan of the Saucony Triumph 22, just found it a really big, heavy shoe that felt quite dense underfoot, despite the fact you had that Power Run PB foam in there. It didn't have a lot of life to it. It felt like a shoe that was just built to be, stable and protective, rather than actually being especially fun to run in. And I think the changes that have been made to the Triumph 23 certainly improve things on that front. Like, I was just going at a very relaxed pace on that long run because I'd done a horrible track session the day before, so nice and cruisy, but the shoe felt a lot nimbler, a lot lighter. That's helped by the fact I've got a UK 8 here instead of a UK 9 for the Triumph 23, my normal size, but certainly it still feels like a much nimbler shoe. And actually it's still quite a wide shoe. I compared the width of it to the Triumph 22 and it still looks pretty similar across the base of the shoe there, but this feels, the Triumph 23, nimbler, feels a bit narrower and nicer on the foot while still being stable and comfortable and all that kind of thing. I think the version of Power Run PB you have in the midsole is a bit better. It's a little bit softer, a little bit bouncier than, like I said, the very dense feeling material you had on the Triumph 22. And although it isn't worlds apart from the previous version of the shoe, I think this is a version of the Triumph that is a bit closer to stuff like the Triumph 20 and 21 that were cushion shoes, but still pretty nimble, pretty responsive, pretty versatile. I think you've got much more of that with the Triumph 23 than you had with the Triumph 22, which felt just like a very cushioned shoe you could only really use for slower paced runs, cruising along, that kind of thing. This feels like it's going to have that more cushioned daily trainer feel to it. So yeah, on that run it was pretty hilly, and picking up my feet going up hills felt a lot better in a shoe like this than it did in the Triumph 22, which was just a bit blocky and ponderous. But then when you're going down hills or in general just running at easy paces, you are still getting a lot of comfort and protection underfoot here from this shoe. It's not really traded away any of those features that you had in past models, whilst having a slightly livelier and more responsive feel underfoot. So yeah, first run, I did enjoy the changes made to the Triumph 23.
So some initial thoughts on the Saucony Triumph 23. This is feeling a little bit more like the Triumph Evolve, the Triumph that we really enjoyed. We, kind of names as one of our favourite shoes in previous Run Testers Awards. Now isn't identical, isn't exactly like those old Triumphs, things like the 20 and 21. But I think what you are getting here now is something closer to what we really liked about the line. This is a shoe that is now lighter than the Triumph 22. It is, the tweaks that have been made to the kind of Power Run PB midsole compound does feel like it's making it a shoe that has a touch more of that versatility back in its kind of favour, which I think was lost in the Triumph 22. At least that was my experience of it. It's a shoe that I think sits mainly with things like the Brooks Glycerin 22, things like the Asics Gel Nimbus 27, but I do think, as I said, with those changes, taking all the good stuff that we have seen in previous Triumph shoes, it looks like that versatility is back with the Triumph. There's definitely other shoes in this kind of category that you probably can get similar kind of qualities from, maybe has a little bit more, a little bit more accommodating at those faster paces. I think things like the Night of Merit 18 really kind of spring to mind in this category. But I think if you like the Triumph of old, I'm not saying that it is the old Triumph, at least that's what I'm seeing so far. There's definitely a bit more of that shoe that we really liked, that version or iteration of the shoe that we really liked. And I'm seeing, hallmarks of it back in the Triumph 23. It's still going to be a shoe that I think is going to be, for a lot of people, an easy day shoe, but I still think there's going to be a fair amount of people also are going to like kind of slightly picking up the pace in it as well. So yeah, good first run in the Triumph 23. Liking what I'm seeing. Definitely feels like Saucony has got back on track, despite it not feeling exactly like that, really good version of the Triumph that we've really loved. It's definitely one that is making a better impression on that first run compared to the Triumph 22.
So my first run in the Saucony Triumph 23, very positive. I was a little bit worried about this shoe because I didn't like the 22, but I do like it. I think it's a return to form. I think it's got a lot of good benefits based on the new geometry, the new foam makeup, all of that sort of stuff. It just feels like a more enjoyable shoe to wear than the 22, and it feels like a shoe that is sitting more into that cushioned all-rounder thing, where it's not going to be a fast shoe, but it's definitely a shoe that feels like you could go out and do a nice consistently paced longer run in it, and feel the benefits of that nice transition, a little bit of bounce from the midsole foam, but overall just a really comfortable experience, which is what the Triumph line was always about in the earlier versions of it. So very, very much enjoyed it for that first run, and pleased that it has a few updates which make it a more palpable shoe for somebody who didn't like the Triumph 22.
So very early impressions of the Triumph 23 is that I do think the changes Saucony has made here are an improvement on the shoe. It brings the Triumph 23 more into line with what I've always felt the Triumph does best, which is to be very cushion and protective, to be a daily trainer that is designed mostly for comfort and to protect the body from the impact of the sport and for ticking off easy and long runs, but to have a bit more versatility and be a shoe that runners who like a cushioned daily trainer to do everything in can do everything in. Like the Triumph was a shoe I raced in when I first started running, and because I was just looking for a big cushion shoe that still had a bit of life to it, and those models always had it, and I think you're getting that with the Triumph 23 again, whereas with the Triumph 22 it just felt much more like a big shoe, more in line with stuff like the Hoka Bondi or Asics Nimbus lines that are really just cushion shoes to be all out cushioned and not necessarily the most lively and sparky underfoot. This is now more in line with shoes I think like the Asics Nova Blast or New Balance 1080 lines, which are cushion shoes, very comfortable shoes, but have a bit more life in them for daily training. So yeah, so I liked it on that first run. Looking forward to doing some more runs in the Triumph 23, even in this too small version of the shoe I have here, which is just about proving okay. And I think if you were excited when Saucony announced they're bringing Power Run PB foam to the shoe but didn't really like the Triumph 22, this might be more in line with what you imagined you were going to get from the shoe, with that responsive foam in there that we've seen on so many of Saucony's speed focused shoes in the past.
So first impressions then are, I've got a Saucony Triumph 23 here, which like a lot of shoes we've been testing recently, I put in the competent box. It's delivering comfort, it's delivering pretty good uppers, pretty sort of decent fit, generally speaking, nice and roomy. That's a big positive if you really want to use this shoe for something longer. It's immediately got my mind thinking about the Berlin Wall 100, and this would be a nice shoe to have as your sort of third go-to shoe for those last 30 miles of something like that, when you've been on feet for a long time and you want something that's going to give you cushion but not too soft and soggy and sapping, but just good, reliable, roomy comfort up top as well, good hold, lots of flex in the toe box. This shoe offers all of that. So I would say, for a reliable, easy mile shoe, sort of everyday kind of cruiser, it just slots right in alongside plenty of other shoes that are doing that and doing it with good competency. It didn't really wow me on that first run, but as ever, I'd like to take these shoes for a lot more miles before you sort of give the final judgment. For the run that I did, which I wanted something just to offer protection, to give me a little bit of energy, look after me, reliable, stable, not too much hard work, but also not bounding me around all over the place. It did tread a really kind of happy middle ground. So yeah, I think my first impressions are kind of competency, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when you start to push this to either longer time on feet or faster runs.
That's it from us on this first run review of the Saucony Triumph 23. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and click that little bell, and if you're going to catch and blow, you can find it to our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.